So I'm talking to some folks in the coaching world, and they were talking about Dabo Swinney the other day. And it got me to thinking, because they were giving me their opinion about how, there may be some of his methodology they're not crazy about, but everyone's got that. The bottom line is the guy's results speak for themselves. And one of you asked me about this, and so I just put it out earlier on Twitter. I said, hey, what are your opinions of Dabo Swinney? And I was just thinking about it. I was in my hotel room earlier this morning. I was just thinking about this. We did not plan on putting this in the show, but I feel like we got to go this direction because we got like 1,000 replies to it. So let me ask you, if you're listening on podcast, let me ask you, if you're watching on YouTube, whether live or delayed, let me ask you, what do you think about Dabo Swinney? Because I got I wrote down 4 of the most popular responses. I think there are like 4 buckets that opinions of Dabo Swinney fall in. One of them is just, I respect him. He's a high character guy. I love the way he goes about his business. There's some people who feel that way. Obviously, a lot of Clemson fans feel that way. That's self-descriptive. I don't have to spend a lot of time on that. There is a fairly sizable group of people. I may fall into this group, actually. There's a sizable group of people who say, there are some things about him that I don't particularly love, but that makes him no different than anyone else. It's not like I totally love anyone's approach to life, including mine sometimes. So he's got some idiosyncrasies I could do without, but by and large, I think he's a stand-up guy. You can't deny his results. His process works. They're certainly succeeding in having built a unique culture up there. That's category 2. I think a lot of the silent majority may fall into that category. Then there's category 3, and that is, I don't like him. I don't like Dabo Swinney. I don't like his methodology. I think there's a lot of him that may be inauthentic. I think he may be a little bit too showy, plays to the audience, and part of him is just straight up tacky. It's not a word I think we've ever used on the show, but it's a word some of you used, and therefore I think that is the sticker that goes on bucket number 3. Frankly, I don't want to really talk to any of you because I get where you're coming from even if I disagree with you. However, bucket number 4 is a little bit different story. Bucket number 4 is I despise him. I think he's fake. I think he's inauthentic, and I don't want anything to do with him. And then there's probably like a personal attack or two that is lobbed at the very end of that I won't present on the show. I want to talk to that crowd for a second. So you're free to your opinion. Told you, we're not going to castigate anyone here for what you think, especially when it's an opinion-based segment. But here's what I want to know. For the folks out there who claim Dabo Swinney is fake, for the ones who claim he's inauthentic, my simple question to you is, who is the real Dabo Swinney? So define for me what it is about him that's fake, and then I want you to tell me what it's like when the mic's off, when the camera's off, when he goes home on Saturday after the game, when there is no assembled media in front of him, when he's just, out on his driveway on a Tuesday morning before work. Who is he really? When he talks to his buddies on the phone, who is he really? When he's meeting with his staff on Monday morning, who is he really? I struggle anytime someone's never met someone to take them seriously when they start telling me how fake someone else is. I've sensed it before. I've got folks just like you who I've never met before, who I look at and I think I can see straight through. However, I can't know for sure if I've never met him before. And the other thing, Meemaw used to always tell me, get an idea of the why before judging the what. And what she meant by that, hats off to Meemaw for that one, what she meant by that is there may be a person out there who does some things that make no sense to you, or they carry themselves in a way that makes no sense to you, but maybe you don't know their story. Jim Ross used to always say, until you've walked a mile in my boots, you only know half the story, which also could have been a Meemaw quote. So Dabo's got a funny way about this. Dabo's got a weird way, a little cringy way he goes about that. That's the what. What's the why behind it? Candidly, I think he brings some of this upon himself because he shies away from platforms like this one, by the way, which is open to him anytime he wants it, from allowing himself to be presented long form, unfiltered, in a way that really disseminates the why behind a lot of the what. Now, if it doesn't bother him and it's not slowing Clemson down, hey, maybe there's no incentive for him to talk like that. I'll tell you how I feel about him. I have never cared for the Clemson versus the world mentality. I've never cared for the little old Clemson deal, only because that's a personal thing with me. I don't believe in using that kind of fuel for motivation because of exactly what's happened at Clemson. You preach that stuff, You preach everyone doubting you. You use disrespect as your fuel. It actually can get you to the mountaintop. The problem is when you're on the mountaintop, no one doubts you anymore. No one disrespects you anymore. You have to make it up. You have to manufacture it. And before too much longer, even though they are 19 and 20 years old, folks see through that. That you can't tell them folks doubt you when they know they're favored by 36.5 against a conference opponent this Saturday. And so it wears out. And if you don't have a secondary pitch, you don't have something else in your back pocket, you can fall flat a little bit. I'm not telling you that's why Clemson has fallen off. I'm telling you that I think it contributes a little bit. Coaching turnover can contribute to that. Not nailing it at quarterback every cycle. Not continually refilling the coffers at wide receiver. A lot of these things go into it. It's never a soundbite or a snapshot that fully represents what a program is. So that's one thing that I've never personally cared for. The running down the hill before the game. I don't know the why behind that. I've never really looked at it and said, "Yeah, go Dabo." I've never necessarily cheered that on. But you know what? I wear a white T-shirt every single show. For all I know, Dabo Swinney could watch it and say, "That is the stupidest thing I've ever seen." Well, he doesn't know the why behind it. I don't think any of you do because I've never told that story. Maybe I will one day. Big deal. So the guy may have a couple of things that I don't particularly love. Here's what I know. What I know is anyone who's ultra close to him, anyone who's been around him, high school coaches especially, that I've talked to, they come back and they say the same thing. Whether you like him or not, there's nothing fake about that. In fact, I would call Dabo Swinney one of the most brutally authentic and one of the most brutally what you see is what you get kind of guys in coaching. I know some of them that have an image that's sort of a mirage. I know some of them that are what we would call in our world heavily produced. Dabo's not one of them. I don't know if you can tell that. If Dabo were heavily produced, you would hear a fraction of what you actually get out of him. Because what you get out of him is largely, as I said, what you get. That's really him. I think there's also an element, I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, that is faith-based in the way that he goes about messaging. Sometimes that stuff can seem inauthentic because there are some people out there who just flat out don't think someone could actually operate off of that platform. Well, I can assure you there are people who do. I'm one of them. I've never backed away from talking about my faith on this show. Now, I may go about it a different way than Dabo Swinney does, but I know that I've gone in our comment section before, even as subtly as I mix it in on our show, and I try not to be in your face about it, but as subtly as I've mixed in. I've had folks question the authenticity of that in my comment section, and I'm not Dabo Swinney, so that times 100 is him. But the point is, whether you like it or not, I don't care if you tell me you don't like it. That's just personal preference. When you start telling me someone's fake about it, when you start telling me they're inauthentic about it, when you start telling me, without having the first clue about who the dude actually is under the surface, that he's fake, that's not really him, how in the world do you know? And how many folks out there do I know, having a little access in this sport, that do know Dabo Swinney on an intimate level that have ever told me that? The answer is zero. The next person who knows Dabo Swinney, the man, who tells me he's inauthentic and fake, will be the first one. I've had people who know him and tell me they don't care for him. I've had folks who know him and tell me, I'm not the biggest Dabo fan. I've had a bunch of folks who say they love him. I don't know that I've ever had anyone who knows the guy who says, boy, that Dabo, you know, that stuff you see, it's not really him. I don't hear that. So that's the one thing. When we got in this Dabo Swinney conversation, which, frankly, I didn't think we were going to be talking about in June, because it's not like he's said anything that's trended over the last month or so. I didn't know we were going that direction, but when I saw some people throwing those terms around, I said, yeah, we better talk about that.